If you're listening to this right now, chances are you've been there. You know that moment. You're in the high-stakes meeting or the critical conversation, and you know exactly what needs to be said. But then something happens. You hesitate. You soften the message. You get bogged down by this internal noise, the laziness, the fear of what they'll think, the procrastination that just keeps you stuck.
It's the gap.
Yes, exactly. It's the gap between what you know you should say and the weaker version of yourself that actually speaks.
And that gap is the crisis point.
Yeah.
We've been analyzing the source material, this incredibly intense guide, and it's not really about communication in the way people think.
Not at all.
It's a severe manual for self-mastery. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty brutal, honestly. We're going to extract the hard truths and the discipline hacks that transform just talking into real leadership.
And the central principle, the idea that underpins everything, is that your external voice is a completely honest reflection of your inner world. You just can't fake it when the pressure is on.
You can't. If your inner world is weak, if you're scattered, if your beliefs are kind of lukewarm or you've been lazy with preparation, your words will just be noise. They won't have any weight.
Meaningless noise.
Precisely. They won't move people. They won't change outcomes. And that brings us right to the first hard truth in the material. It's this. People follow voices that lead, not voices that are just trying to be heard.
That's a big one. If your words don't have that gravity, your presence won't lead anyone past the parking lot, as the source puts it.
Right. And that's what separates, the 1% who command that quiet respect from everyone else who's just fighting for airtime.
It's not about being the loudest person in the room. It's not about having the biggest vocabulary. It's about the internal discipline that creates that precision, that clarity, and that unshakable strength.
So that's our core thesis today. We're analyzing the discipline it takes to build a voice that commands respect without needing to shout, a voice that creates action without needing to impress anyone. The whole thing is about taking total, absolute control of your internal world so that your external message becomes, anchored, unavoidable even.
Okay, so where do we start? To build that anchor, what's the first step?
We start by killing the foundation of weakness. Let's get into the mindset you have to destroy first.
Okay, so the very first discipline is completely internal. It's about getting rid of that weak mindset that poisons your words before they're even spoken. This brings us to what the source calls discipline hack 1. Own every word you say.
And the material is just.
Yeah.
It's absolutely unforgiving on this. It talks about the problem of noise. If you speak without true conviction, if there's even a tiny bit of hedging inside you, what you say is immediately just noise.
And noise doesn't do anything.
It does nothing. It doesn't build trust. It doesn't inspire action. It certainly doesn't change a single mind. It just, fills the silence. The second you add a little asterisk or a disclaimer to your own words, you've told everyone, and more importantly, you've told yourself that this isn't essential listening.
So why do we do it? I think a lot of people listening are probably nodding along thinking about this halfway habit. Why are we so drawn to those weak phrases like I think, or maybe, or I guess, or the classic I'm not sure, but
We think.
It's a shield.
A defense mechanism.
It's the ultimate defense for the ego, but it is pure self-sabotage if you want to lead. Those phrases are designed to give you an escape route, an out, so you can retreat without losing face if someone challenges you.
But a leader can't have an escape route.
A leader doesn't need one. A leader has to stand right in the center of their statement. You have to hunt down and eliminate every single one of those phrases. They actively drain the power from your message. I mean, think about the person you respect the most. Do they say, well, I think we should probably try doing this? No. They say, this is the plan. This is what we're doing.
The difference is monumental. It's the difference between suggesting and leading.
Which brings us to this idea of the mandate of ownership. This isn't just about faking it till you make it or just sounding confident. It's about congruence.
Exactly. It's about meaning what you say, saying what you mean, and taking full, non-negotiable responsibility for every word that comes out of your mouth. You're basically issuing a guarantee with your words.
People have to feel that what you're saying isn't just some opinion you picked up. It has to feel like it's who you are. It's a reflection of a decision you've already made inside.
And you can't just manufacture that feeling. You have to earn it. This is where the source makes a critical link between certainty and hard work. It calls it confidence through preparation.
This is the only kind of confidence that actually holds up under pressure.
Right. It's not faked. It comes from having, and I'm quoting here, already done the work. It's from knowing the data inside and out, from having rehearsed the difficult conversation, from anticipating the objections before they even come up.
So you're not winging it. You're not making it up as you go.
Leaders prepare so intensely that when they speak, it's just a report of conclusions they've already reached. Your words have power because all that effort you put in beforehand acts like ballast for a ship. It keeps you steady.
And this leads to what might be the hardest part, the most non-negotiable piece of mental toughness required here. The source calls it the action example link. And this, I think, is where it really hits home for people. We can sit here and talk about discipline and strong words all day long, but if your life is a mess, your words are just hollow.
They're worthless. If you preach accountability, but you're always 15 minutes late, people see it instantly.
They don't just see it, they completely dismiss everything else you say. It's like you have zero credibility.
Because they listen, infinitely more to your example, how you live your life, how you manage your own time, your own stress, than they do to your explanations about what you plan to do one day.
So when your behavior actually backs up your words,
then the need to try to sound confident just evaporates. You just are confident because you've already proven your competence to the most important person in the room, yourself. And that congruence, that is what creates the unshakable voice.
So once you've earned that confidence, that internal anchor, you then have the right, or maybe even the duty to stop babying your audience. Which leads us right into hard truth 1. Stop apologizing for your truth.
This is a huge wake-up call. It's for anyone whose primary goal is to fit in rather than to lead. The source is so clear. Leaders do not speak to be liked. They speak to be clear, and they speak to lead.
And if you find yourself constantly shrinking your message down, trying to make it more palatable so others feel comfortable.
The source has a warning. It says you will never say anything worth listening to. Your goal has to be impact and effectiveness, not winning a popularity contest.
Okay, but here's the friction. This is where I think people get stuck. How do you maintain that firmness, that clarity, without coming across as, a jerk, as arrogant or dictatorial? Isn't there a risk that cutting out all that soft talk will just push people away?
That is a critical distinction to make. Certainty is not arrogance. Arrogance is the need to be right at all costs. Certainty is the quiet internal understanding that you've done the work, and this is your disciplined, vetted conclusion.
So the shift away from soft talk isn't about being aggressive.
Not at all. The shift from soft talk is mandatory because soft language is almost always used to protect the speaker's ego from disagreement. It's self-protection.
Yeah.
But leadership requires you to speak what matters, especially when it's uncomfortable. You have to be firm and real and own your truth, even if you're the only one in the room who holds it.
That's internal backbone made external.
That's it. You're not apologizing for your conclusion. You're simply presenting your conviction.
Okay, so let's get really specific. Let's detail the types of weak talk that the source says you have to just ruthlessly hunt down and eliminate from your vocabulary.
Okay, so beyond the general ones like I think, you have to look for phrases that give away your power before you even make your point. The classic is, I'm not sure, but, and then you say your main idea.
You've just told your audience not to trust the very thing you're about to say.
You've totally undermined yourself. Or the self-deprecating opener, this might sound dumb, but why would you ever do that? You're basically apologizing for taking up space with your idea.
It's preemptively asking for forgiveness for having an opinion.
Exactly. And another huge one is hope masquerading as a plan. The phrase, hopefully it works out. Hope is not a strategy.
So instead of hope, you replace it with what? Declaration.
Declarations of decision. These habits have to be unlearned and replaced with immediate, decisive language. Not, I hope to, but I will. Not, I guess we could, but I've decided this is the path. Not, I'm not sure what this means, but here's what I see. It shows you've moved past hoping and into the world of acting and deciding.
And once you deliver that decisive statement, that's where this counterintuitive discipline comes in, the power of silence. This is where the control becomes like a physical thing.
It is. Weak speakers are terrified of silence. They rush to fill every single pause because they're afraid of awkwardness or they feel a desperate need to control the conversation.
But strong communicators, they use it. They almost weaponize it.
They do. They understand that a pause gives the listener time, as the source says, to hear it, to feel it, to let it land.
Right. So if you've just delivered a hard truth or a decision that really challenges the way things are, that pause afterwards it's mandatory.
Yeah.
It forces everyone in the room to actually absorb the message instead of immediately reacting to it.
The silence speaks just as loudly as the words did. You have to use it deliberately. If you've just said, We are cutting this project, effective immediately. You must stop talking.
You don't immediately jump in with, and here are all the reasons why, and I know this is hard, but...
No, you let that statement hang in the air. That intentional silence communicates absolute control. It shows intentionality and a total lack of desperation. It shows you know your statement is strong enough to stand on its own. I'm telling you, mastering a simple, intentional 3-second pause after a key statement is one of the fastest ways to elevate your perceived authority.
Okay, so we've laid the internal foundation. It's about ownership, confidence that's earned, not faked. But now we have to make sure that strength actually translates into communication that's maximally efficient. Which brings us to clarity.
This is where mental toughness becomes a form of respect for your audience's most valuable, most finite resource, their attention. And this leads right to discipline hack 2. Take full responsibility for clarity.
And this is a really tough pill to swallow because it completely eliminates the most common excuse we all use when communication fails. They just weren't listening, or it was obvious they should have figured it out.
The hard truth from the source is just brutal on this. It says, unclear words create unclear minds. If people walk away from a conversation with you feeling confused, it is not their fault. It is yours.
100% your fault.
You cannot just dump a bunch of complexity on people and expect them to do the work of untangling it for you. If your message gets lost in the weeds, your influence is gone. A leader's job isn't just to know the truth, it's to make that truth clear and accessible.
Which means the focus has to shift immediately away from trying to sound smart.
Oh, that's just vanity.
The only goal is to be understood. And that requires what the Force calls the necessity of stripping away fluff.
You have to burn this rule in your brain. Think before you speak. Be ruthlessly specific. And cut every single extra word that waters down your point. The manual demands that we stop trying to sound intelligent and focus only on being understood. If you can say it in 5 words, using 15 is a failure of discipline.
It shows you haven't done the hard internal work of boiling it down to the essential truth.
Exactly. And if you fail at that, you are actively wasting attention.
Which is the ultimate sign of disrespect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Leaders don't waste people's time, and they definitely don't waste their attention. The goal is simple. Get to the point, deliver the value, and stay on point. The moment your audience has to work to figure out what you're trying to say, you've lost them. They'll just check out mentally.
Complexity is the enemy of action.
It is. The more you talk, the more chances you give the listener to get distracted or hung up on some irrelevant detail.
And the main symptom of this lack of clarity is something we see all the time, which is the next point. Hard truth 2. Eliminate over-explaining.
Over-explaining is almost always a sign of internal doubt or a fear of being judged. When you are truly certain of your message, you don't feel this compulsion to back it up with 3 different analogies and a list of 7 justifications.
You just state it?
You state your position, you state the required action, and you stop talking.
It's a defensive mood, isn't it? You're trying to use the sheer volume of words to protect your ego from any potential criticism.
Precisely. When you're certain, one strong example is enough. When you're uncertain, you throw every piece of evidence you have at the wall, just hoping one of them will stick. But the paradox is, the more words you use, the more chances you have to contradict yourself or weaken your core idea. This is the truth of value versus length.
Your value is measured by how well you say something, not how much you say.
Right. It's about the precision, not the airtime you consume. If I have to listen to you for 10 minutes just to pull out 1 minute of actual actionable information, you've failed me as a leader.
Okay, let's push on that a little. In some fields, technical fields, high-risk situations, context is everything. You can't just be brief. So how does a disciplined leader balance that radical conciseness with providing necessary context?
That's where the preparation we talked about becomes so critical. The rule of the conciseness advantage isn't about just saying less for the sake of it. It's about saying only what is essential.
So you have to filter.
You have to be a ruthless filter. You cut the fluff, you cut the self-justification, you cut the long historical anecdote that isn't directly driving the action you need. The leader has to be able to distinguish between context, which supports the action, and defense, which just supports the ego.
And being brief shows respect.
It shows you respect the listener's time. The more certain you are, the less you feel the need to say to prove it. Power comes from simplicity and from the discipline to edit your own thoughts down to their absolute core before you even open your mouth.
So what's a practical way to train that? How do we stop ourselves from just habitually over-explaining everything?
You have to practice the art of the clean finish. Strong communicators deliver their point and then they hit the brakes. Internally, they stop talking. The silence that comes right after a clean, powerful statement creates the space for impact. It forces the listener to grapple with the weight of the message.
Is there an exercise for that?
Yes. The single-sentence summary drill. Before you go into any important conversation, you must be able to summarize your entire point, your entire intention, in one single, perfectly clear, forceful sentence.
And if you can't?
If you can't nail that one sentence, you are not ready to speak, because it means you haven't done the internal work of distillation yet.
Wow. So that's a fundamental challenge right there. It means if you aren't perfectly clear in your own head, you have absolutely no right to waste someone else's time by trying to figure it out loud.
It's a matter of total responsibility. You have to train yourself. Deliver the message, let it land, and fight that powerful urge to circle back, to add disclaimers, or to elaborate defensively. When you master that, people start to lean in every time you speak. They know you're not going to waste their time with padding.
So clarity and ownership are critical, but they can completely fall apart the second that stress enters the picture. The second your decision gets questioned or a conflict heats up, your voice is going to betray whatever's happening inside you.
Unless you've mastered emotional toughness. This is the ultimate test of self-mastery. We're moving to discipline hack 3. Control your inner world first. The source is so clear on this. The voice as a reflection is always on. Your voice is like a direct, audible seismograph of your internal state. Your nervousness, your anger, your uncertainty.
And if your voice isn't steady,
your leadership will never be fully trusted, because an erratic voice signals a lack of control when things get tough.
It reminds me of the difference between a panicked commander shouting an order in a crisis versus one who delivers it in a calm, controlled tone. The shout creates more panic.
While the calm command creates direction. That's the perfect analogy. It's the difference between being loud versus grounded. Loud people are often trying to get noticed. They're using volume to compensate for some kind of internal insecurity or lack of preparedness.
But grounded leaders,
they just want to be understood.
Yeah.
When your voice is controlled, when it's calm, steady, and deliberate in its pacing, people feel psychologically safe around you. They trust your stability because they know you're not going to fly off the handle when things go wrong. You become their anchor in the storm.
Okay, but let's talk about the friction here. What happens when your body just betrays you? You're facing genuine fear or massive adrenaline dump, and your voice starts shaking. Your heart is pounding in your ears. How does discipline overcome raw biology?
You don't overcome the adrenaline. You manage your response to it. And the key is to ground yourself physically. It starts with the breathing technique.
Right. The shaky voice comes from shallow, rapid breathing.
Exactly. That's what makes your voice pitchy and fast. By intentionally slowing down your breath, using your diaphragm, you force your body's nervous system to calm down. It naturally makes your voice stronger, deeper, and slower. It's a physical reset button.
So this needs to be like a mandatory ritual. Before every high-stakes conversation, you take a moment, you center yourself, you intentionally slow everything down internally. You're deciding the pace of the conversation before you even say a word.
And that shows up externally as deliberate authority. This practice is absolutely vital for managing your emotional triggers. The ability to keep your voice regulated when you are being challenged is the fundamental test of your stability.
Because if your voice cracks or your tone gets defensive,
or gets higher under pressure, people instantly lose faith in your ability to lead when it really counts. Control means staying completely calm and present even when the resistance is fierce.
And that stable presence then allows you to execute on hard truth 3. Hold your ground when others try to shake you.
This is the real test of your internal strength. I mean, anyone can sound confident when things are calm, when they're giving a rehearsed presentation to a friendly audience. The real test is when your decisions are aggressively questioned or your words are criticized in front of others.
The world will always give you resistance.
And leadership is defined entirely by how solid you remain when that happens.
So when that resistance comes, that tough question, that person who flat out disagrees with you, the natural instinct is to avoid the fold. Most people immediately start backpedaling. They soften their words. They over-explain defensively.
Or they try to win back approval by saying something like, well, I could be wrong about this.
And in that moment, all your strength is just gone.
Completely gone. The leader has to, as the source says, stay anchored in what you've built inside. You cannot borrow strength in that moment. It has to have been earned through prior discipline. When you're challenged, you simply reiterate your clear, concise point without changing the core message or softening your tone.
So if someone challenges the decision you just made, you don't raise your voice or start arguing, you just repeat the decision in the same low, steady volume. That sounds incredibly difficult to do in the heat of the moment.
It is difficult. It's also necessary. Strength is calm certainty. Leaders do not need to yell to prove that they're solid. They speak with the unwavering tempo of their conviction. People have immense respect for what doesn't flinch.
If you change your tone and your pacing every time the mood in the room shifts,
People see that you're unstable. They stop trusting your judgment when things get risky.
so to deal with tension effectively, you have to become profoundly comfortable with being uncomfortable.
You have to be willing to sit in that tension. You meet it head on. You show the room that disagreement, that questioning, that even hostility. It doesn't scare you into retreating. You don't have to attack back. You just have to stay rooted. You hold the line.
The power in that non-flinching response, just holding your ground without changing a single word, that communicates more authority than 100 defensive explanations ever could.
That steadiness teaches everyone a vital lesson about you. Your words are not based on emotion or reaction. They are based on an internal standard and disciplined preparation. And when people realize that testing you only confirms how solid you are, eventually, they stop trying to shake you. You become, quite simply, undeniable.
Okay, so we've covered the internal anchor of ownership and the external delivery of clarity and control. Now we have to talk about the entire point of all this, creating actual movement, getting results. This is where the voice becomes a tool for action.
Exactly. This is the final step. Discipline hack 4.
Oh,
Speak to impact, not impress. This is a profound philosophical shift for most people.
it's about purpose over performance.
Right. You have to start seeing your voice as a tool for initiating change, not as a crutch for validating your own ego. You are speaking to serve a purpose, to lead people toward a better outcome, a higher standard, not to look smart or witty or superior. When your motive shifts from performance to purpose, your effectiveness it skyrockets.
I think this is where so many motivational speakers get it wrong. They focus on the fluff, the feel-good stories, but they don't actually drive any real sustained change. The manual suggests that the core motivation for change isn't inspiration, it's permission.
It's permission. People are often just looking for someone to give them permission to demand more from themselves. They need a signal that it's okay to stop accepting mediocrity. And a leader provides that by embracing the confrontation imperative.
To really move people, you have to speak directly to their pain points, to the excuses they've been carrying around.
But you have to do it with honesty and strength, not with judgment.
Right.
Leaders say what needs to be said, not what the audience wants to hear. It's the voice that says, you've waited long enough, you know you've been hiding from this risk, you have been settling. That direct confrontation, delivered with the grounded, steady tone we've been talking about, becomes the turning point they need. It cuts right through their avoidance.
And if soft talk just encourages more procrastination, then leadership requires a certain amount of pressure. This is the role of urgency. Your words need to carry this palpable sense that something must be done now.
Not panic. It's pressure. The most dangerous state for anyone or any organization is inaction. So you must clearly and calmly articulate what they lose by staying the same. What is the cost of waiting?
Because the truth is, staying where you are is often the most dangerous decision of all.
By focusing on the cost of delay, you trigger immediate action. You don't give them time for their mind to deliberate and paralyze them again.
Which flows perfectly into Hard Truth 4, chase progress, not applause.
Leaders cannot be addicted to popularity. You don't say what's comfortable or what's fashionable. You say what is needed to create forward momentum. The room might not stand up and cheer when you deliver a hard truth about their poor performance.
In fact, they probably won't.
But they will sit with that truth. And if it's real and it's delivered with conviction, they will eventually move. That moment of necessary discomfort is the birthplace of all real lasting change.
And once that change starts, the leader has to make the direction crystal clear. This is where the idea that simplicity fuels action comes in.
Complexity is the enemy. It breeds hesitation, it breeds doubt, and ultimately it breeds inaction. The action driver has to be ruthless about simplifying. Your job is to move people from a vague idea to a definite decision, from good intentions to actual change.
You have to break it down into a single, clear next step. The source material really emphasizes using direct, clear commands here. Things like, start today, or make that specific phone call now.
Right. Fix this component now. People act on solid, unambiguous direction, not on vague 10-point strategies.
And that clarity is what ensures your goal shifts from just being heard versus being remembered. Being heard is just about having presence in the moment.
But being remembered is about having purpose. Your words should become an anchor that lives inside someone's mind, challenging their excuses and reminding them of what really matters long after that meeting is ended.
The feeling of being impressed fades almost instantly. But impact lasts because the message was real, it was tested, and it was delivered with conviction. Your voice becomes the standard they start measuring their own effort against.
And that is your leadership signature. If you speak from a place that has already been moved by your own high standards, moved by the lessons of your own failures, and moved by an unwavering commitment to the truth, then a single sentence from you will have more gravitational pull than someone else's entire 5-minute speech. That is the whole point of speaking to impact.
Okay, so everything we've talked about, ownership, clarity, control, this urgency to create impact, it's all completely useless unless it's trained, unless it's practiced. Yeah. So this last part is all about consistency.
It is. It's about making this unshakable voice your natural default state, not some performance you have to put on.
If you want to talk like a leader, you have to train like one.
This is the daily requirement. Leadership is not an event that just magically shows up. It is a trait that is built through relentless, quiet, boring repetition. You have to train your voice the same way you'd train any physical skill, not just in the big moments,
but in the small, daily, mundane conversations.
That's the unglamorous grind that most people are just not willing to do.
And the consequence of avoiding that grind is immediate. It's what the source calls the unavoidable exposure. If you haven't done the training, pressure doesn't reveal your best self. It exposes your weakest gaps every single time.
You can't fix a shaky tone or uncertain phrasing in the middle of a conflict. It's too late. Those weaknesses have to be fixed ahead of time when nobody's watching.
So you're saying you practice this tone, this clarity, when you're just ordering a coffee?
Yes, ordering coffee, responding to a simple email, giving a clear direction to a team member on some low-priority task. These tiny micro moments are your training ground.
And the training of the voice is obviously linked to the training of the mind. This requires deep internal alignment. You have to actively discipline your own internal dialogue.
You have to get rid of the internal clutter. You must get used to thinking in simple, strong statements inside your own head first. When you talk to yourself, you have to use the voice of the leader you want to become.
You have to stop allowing that passive, unsure voice to have the microphone in your head.
Exactly.
Can you give us some practical examples of that? How do you actually shift that internal language?
You replace your internal hedging with internal commands. When you're facing a tough task, you don't think, gosh, maybe I should try to get this done eventually. You command yourself, I will make this decision by noon.
So you're decisive even with yourself.
You have to be. You think, I am capable of handling this complexity. I refuse to stay average. This internal discipline means that when you do open your mouth to speak to others, the words just naturally follow that strong, decisive pattern you've already established. You're not trying to create clarity on the spot. You've already built it inside your mind.
And when you operate from that place of strong internal alignment, you don't feel the need to be so defensive externally because the conviction is already baked in.
And that is what establishes the confidence cycle. Self-trust starts to show up in your speech because you have practiced being consistent with yourself. Confidence becomes earned through that relentless adherence to your own internal standards. You know what your voice sounds like under pressure because you've already won the argument inside your own head.
So the ultimate result of all this training, the peak of this self-mastery, is that you stop trying to lead. You stop calculating your next move or your next impressive-sounding phrase.
You just lead.
It becomes natural.
It becomes utterly effortless. People don't follow you because you've put on a persona or because you demanded they do. They follow because you have built a rhythm, a tone, and a presence that guides them naturally. Your voice is just an extension of your character.
The final call for consistency is probably the most demanding truth in the entire manual. It's that your leadership doesn't depend on your mood or how much energy you have or how stressed you are.
It depends only on your preparation. The goal is to be so practiced, so grounded, and so consistent that your voice becomes effortless and natural under any circumstance. People follow because they recognize that stability. They follow because your voice is built on discipline, not on chance or luck or accident. If your words are honest, your tone will be steady. If your message is true, your delivery will be strong. This daily, unwavering commitment is what makes your leadership and your voice absolutely undeniable. #outro.
So we've taken a deep, pretty intense dive into what it takes to build this unshakable voice. This is really about communication as a form of self-mastery. It demands that ownership, that absolute clarity, emotional control, and a focused urgency.
And you have to remember that your voice is just leadership made audible. Before you ever try to lead a team or a company or even just a difficult conversation with your family, you have to first master the voice inside your own head. That is the real proving ground.
So we'll leave you with this final necessary challenge. If your internal dialogue is weak, if it's passive and full of maybe and I guess, then your outer voice will always be weak. You have to change your internal state first. You have to start speaking strong on the inside, demanding more from yourself. I can do this. I refuse to stay average. I am done delaying.
The shift starts now. In the very next moment, you open your mouth, whether it's to talk to a colleague or just to yourself. You don't need an audience or applause to begin. You just need discipline and the courage to speak like someone who genuinely means every single word. So before you try to lead anyone else, you have to ask yourself, is my voice forged in this discipline ready to guide?
Stop living in delay. Start living on purpose. Let the discipline of your voice be the very first commitment you take action on immediately after this deep dive ends. That is the only path to becoming truly unshakable.